If you were hoping that WandaVision Episode 3 would alleviate some of the confusion we all had after watching the first 2 episodes, well, it doesn't do that at all. Even so, that's basically why the series has been so enjoyable so far. We may think we know where everything is headed, but we aren't quite being shown anything definitive, for the most part. Anyway, let's get on with it. I'm Ewan, you're watching What Culture, and here's our breakdown of WandaVision Episode 3. WandaVision Episode 3 picks up with Wanda and Vision in the 1970s, my personal favourite decade because boy did a lot of stuff happen, with Wanda now pregnant. We get a nice little 70s style sitcom intro here, and I must say as well that the costume, hair and makeup and set design is all perfect. They've really nailed each decade here, and that trend continues into this week's episode. Also, again, to echo my comments from last week, I would unironically watch a sitcom about Wanda and Vision getting ready to have children because they are really adorable here, and Paul Bettany pulls off the 70s Robert Redford-esque hair very well. And whereas the first 2 episodes started off on semi-sincere notes in the sense that the sinister undercurrents were more towards the background and not the foreground, at least not until the later stages of those episodes, Episode 3 looks at those 2 and just goes, nah, we're going into this right away. We get a little bit of dialogue between Vision and his neighbor Herb, and he's basically trimming his hedges, but he's trimming straight into his brick fence, which is funny, but in a ha-ha, no, seriously, what's going on type way. This comes just after the local town doctor comes in to check on Wanda to see how her pregnancy is doing, and obviously Vision is a little bit confused. 12 hours ago, she wasn't pregnant, and now she's like 4 months into her pregnancy, and I was kind of hoping for here as well some explanation about just exactly why we're going into each decade with each episode, because while it makes a lot of sense from, a storytelling perspective, I would kind of like to see the logic behind it in terms of Wanda's reality that she's creating here, if we are to assume that she is responsible for the way that Westview is in its current predicament. Wanda and Vision also somewhat naively debate the name that they're going to give to this child because they still think it's just going to be one child and not twins, and so Wanda wants to call him Tommy and Vision wants to call him Billy. Now obviously they get the best of both worlds at the end of the episode because woohoo, twins, but it is quite funny and quite cool to see those names confirmed for real in the MCU. But it's not like they have time to debate the names anyway because Wanda moves through all stages of pregnancy at a rapid rate. And it's funny, especially when she gets to do the breathing exercises, but at the same time, you can tell that Vision's having a hard time processing what the hell is going on. And that alarm and confusion transitions from just stereotypical would-be dad anxiety to genuine concern after that exchange with Herb. Vision begins to realize that something really isn't right here and sincerely tells Wanda about how the incidents with Mr. and Mrs. Hart, 2 episodes prior, and what's going on right now have unsettled him. And Wanda basically just gives him a blank stare, and instead of getting the rewind we got when the beekeeper showed up, she just basically just resets everything. We get a quick kind of cut, and then before we know it, Vision is back walking into the room, only with markedly different dialogue that's much more supportive of Wanda and everything that is going on right now. All this terror brings us the perfect moment to then get onto what has become a sort of highlight for me with each episode of WandaVision, and that is the series' patented adverts. Yes, last week we got the Baron Strucker watch in episode 2, and then this week we get the Hydra bubble bath thing for when you really want to be like Hydra, which isn't good. Whatever, it's fun, it's quirky, I really enjoy the adverts in the show, and I cannot wait to see what they do with the 80s when advertising was really at its most gaudy. Straight after the advert, Wanda's pregnancy continues to rapidly advance, and we get some cool shots of her losing control of her powers in kind of fun and quirky ways. She manifests the butterflies and the little dangly mobile thing, I think they're called, and then also the stalk that they've painted onto the wall. becomes a real stalk, and that becomes a bit of a headache for Wanda when Geraldine arrives. At this point, Wanda's water has actually broken, and this becomes a massive stress for her because both her and Vision agreed to keep the pregnancy a secret, lest they reveal to the entire town that they aren't who they say they are. At this point, Geraldine is none the wiser. Wanda is doing her best to basically distract the fact that she has a massive bump, wearing a couple of massive coats, maybe having some strategically placed fruit bowls to hide from it, but she can't keep it a secret for long. But I do want to point out something before I jump into the actual delivery of the children, and that is that Geraldine, who we know in fact to be Monica Rambeau, talks about her job and how she got a promotion and how she was going to move on to a quote-unquote new quadrant, which is a pretty big reference to S.W.O.R.D. and the fact that obviously, you know, in the comics, Monica becomes Photon or Captain Marvel. She has gone by so many different monikers in the comics, and she is a spacefaring superhero. We don't know if she has her powers yet or not. I'm going to assume not. But either way, given that S.W.O.R.D. is in the business of dealing with extraterrestrial threats and space and everything, it makes sense that she would mention her going to a new quadrant as being a part of her job. Regardless of whether or not Monica is in on the illusion right now, she helps deliver Wanda's first child. Vision then shows up and delivers the second one, which is a massive surprise to only those two because we saw the twins in the promo and everyone who's familiar with the comics knows that they have twins. But yeah, Tommy and Billy are finally alive, and the anxiety still has not abated. Just to give a brief synopsis on Tommy and Billy, in the comics they go by the superhero names of Speed and Wiccan, and they're both Young Avengers. Their history is somewhat complicated, but all you need to know is that in the comics, Wanda unwittingly used fragments of Mephisto's soul to create them, and then they were wiped away from reality when Mephisto reabsorbed part of his own soul, before later being reincarnated with a different family. They're important Young Avengers, and I'd expect them to age rapidly over the coming few episodes. And it's at this point that things ratchet up to their most anxiety-inducing yet. The Doctor decides to not go on vacation because, and I quote, small towns are really hard to escape, and then we get another exchange with Vision and the neighbors, this time Agnes and Herb, who are both complaining about Geraldine. Agnes also has a small line about Ralph, her husband, looking a lot better in the dark, which will no doubt stoke the flames of those Mephisto theories that have been doing the rounds of the internet for the past couple of weeks now. We actually have our own video on that fan theory that you can go check out right now. It's really good, if I do say so myself, and it provides a little bit more context on Mephisto's history with Scarlet Witch in the comics. But there are also some other things going on with Agnes here, the Grim Reaper necklace being a standout. The villain's helmet was spotted in the second episode's opening credits, so it seems increasingly likely that he has something to do with what's going on right now. And again, to provide a brief explanation of what the Grim Reaper is in Marvel Comics, well, he's a supervillain who is the brother of Wonder Man, and he has a scythe for an arm, he's big, imposing, and he has a big history with Vision because Wonder Man, his brother, his brainwaves were actually used to create Vision's personality in the comics, and obviously that isn't the case in the MCU, so I'm interested to see how Marvel Studios are going to adapt that element into live action. And this is where things get to their most tense. Geraldine and Wanda are looking over Tommy and Billy, and it's at this point that Wanda remembers Pietro, who is of course Quicksilver, who died in Avengers Age of Ultron at the titular android's hands. It's almost like the two of them have snapped out of whatever spell has enchanted them, because while Wanda is singing a Sokovian lullaby to her children, Geraldine recounts the events of Age of Ultron and talks about how Pietro was killed by him, at which point Wanda gets very angry. She doesn't know who exactly Geraldine is and focuses on the sword necklace she is wearing before expelling her from Westview back into the main reality. The aspect ratio changes, Monica is back in the real world, and hoo boy, episode 4 is gonna be a doozy. But as for my closing thoughts on episode 3 of WandaVision, I really enjoyed it I'm loving how little I know about what's going to happen. Obviously, we can all theorize, and that is a very exciting part about consuming media when it isn't just released in one big block that you can binge over the course of one weekend. And yeah, I'm just really enjoying it. I'm along for the ride. I cannot wait to see how they incorporate Speed and Wiccan, and how the show takes on the different sitcoms that we've seen over the course of the last several decades. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. Can't wait to see what comes next Friday. And that was our little breakdown of WandaVision Episode 3. What did you think of the episode? Let me know down in the comments below, and please don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it, and to subscribe to What Culture for more content like this every single day. I've been Ewan. You can follow me on Twitter if you would like to, @EwanRuinsThings, but that's all for now. I'll see you next time. Bye!